I'd like to call to order this July 11th, 2023 meeting of the East Ascension Drainage District Number 1 Board of Commissioners. I appreciate everyone being here tonight, and I would like to ask Councilman Dempsey Lambert, or Commissioner Lambert, to lead us in the invocation and the pledge, please.
Please bow. Dear Lord, we'd like to please give us the strength, the wisdom to move this parish forward with our drainage issues. Thank you for being really light on the rain this year. We really appreciate it. We ask all these things in your Son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Certainly there's a public comment time available affiliated with each agenda item. So if you're here to speak on a particular item, please come up, grab a red or a green card, put your name on that, and I will call on you to speak at the appropriate time, and look forward to hearing from any member of the public that has a comment to make about a particular agenda item. Item number 4 is acceptance of the minutes. The chair would entertain a motion. Have a motion by Mr. Robert, a second by Mr. Mason, who his voice is not as easy to understand today. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item B, approval to correct a typographical error to amendment number 7 to the master contract with Infinity Engineering, Conway Bayou Pump Station, otherwise known as the Sorrento Pump Station. Thank you for making that available to us. That's an upgrade. On May 9th, 2023, amendment number 7 was approved by this body. It was discovered afterwards that there was, in fact, no amendment number 6 in place, and that the amendment approved should have been number 6, not number 7.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Mr. Lawler, a second by Mr. Melanson to approve, and I'm trying to pull this chair up where I can speak clearly here.
I don't know what happened to that chair.
I'll bet you do. I'll get you for that.
Yes, ma'am.
That's an inside joke. Item number, are there any objections to this motion? Any questions? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item 5, I do not have any reports or announcements. I look forward to, and I'm happy to be home from vacation, happy to be back, good to see everybody, and let's move along. General business. Item A, approval of amendment number 2 to the cooperative endeavor agreement with homeowners for the elevation of site number 10-45500 to increase the total CEA amount by an additional $15,000 for a total CEA amount of $231,730 for 90% funding from the federal government in accordance with all FEMA regulations at no cost to the parish, and to authorize Parish President Clint Quintmall to sign and execute all documents pertaining to this CEA and/or Patrick Goldsmith. Have a motion by Mr. Robert, a second by Mr. Melanson. Are there any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Hermione. Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item C, an update of the drainage ordinance and requirements of Ascension Parish relative to those of Gonzales and Sorrento. Did I skip one? I'm sorry. Item B, excuse me, approval to enter into a contract with Triton Controls and Engineering for an amount not to exceed $100,000 for the Ascension Parish Government SCADA system. Well, Mr. Dawson, I would not want to skip you.
Well, thank you.
I apologize for that.
So, if you remember, when we started this, we outlined phase 1 and phase 2. We just completed phase 1. Phase 2 got a proposal from Triton, and we're ready to execute that. It's a $100,000 proposal, and be glad to go over that with you guys.
Sure. I have a motion by Mr. Robert, a second by Mr. Lambert. Are there any questions?
Can we learn a little bit more about what this entails?
Sure. Bill, if you'll give us your or if you all will give us a
Yeah, I'll
little more
let
update.
Travis Blanchard, you.
With Triton
you've met him
Controls.
before, he's with Triton, and he can
Hi,
answer any
Travis.
questions
How you doing?
about the proposal.
So the stage that I'm in right now is I'm completing an evaluation. We've recommended one SCADA software, and I'm actually going through building a skeleton application for that software to actually test on the system. And just getting thoroughly into that testing. So I'm still involved in that. Then the next part would be creating a system block diagram. We need something, an overall view of all the connectivity of each site, all the HMIs that will be installed in the future, all the PLCs, the IP addresses. So it's a good troubleshooting tool and an organizational tool. So that would be the next step.
Sir, if you could, when you have all those acronyms for the benefit of the public, use those, and me, because I don't always know what those
Okay.
acronyms
I
represent.
did, in the report we gave, I did have a list of the acronyms, so I can add that page to other
Just go through
additional.
the ones you just talked about.
Yeah, the ones you just
Okay,
talked about, so the
PLC,
public understands.
okay, PLC, programmable logic controller. It's the brain that talks to the field equipment. HMI is human-machine interface, so that's a computer screen with an actual PC that the operator can monitor indications from the field and make changes to the start-stop pumps, monitor levels and that nature. SCADA, supervisory control and data acquisition. So SCADA is the PLC and the HMI together. It's grabbing information. Also in this system, we'll have a historian. So the historian is going to log all the data that's coming from the field. Not a historian person. It's another computer. So as large as the computer, the memory in the computer is, you can keep data. Just keep increasing the size of your PC or the size of the memory in your PC, and that we'll be able to look customize trends of levels and rain totals and that nature. So that will be part of the SCADA system as well. I'm missing anything?
Well, I think, the tying in of all the equipment at Marvin Bros, so you got
Right.
pumps 1 through
So
5.
Marvin Bro and Henderson Bayou, let me back up on PLCs. You have all kinds of different flavors, flavors like manufacturers of PLCs. Marvin Bro and Henderson Bayou are Siemens PLCs. They have their own standalone little network. So the PLC is talking to it's a local HMI that's in the panel that the operator can look at values and adjust, start and stop the engines from there. So part of this will be specifying a network to connect those PLCs to the overall SCADA network. And in the interim, we will be able to access the data out of those Siemens PLCs to be able to get them into the SCADA system until we upgrade those Siemens PLCs to an Allen Bradley in the future. The goal is to get Ascension Parish standardized with one family of PLCs and one family of the HMIs. That helps with spare parts and troubleshooting. Everybody, you don't have 10 different systems to be familiar with. Also, standardization in this. I actually had the opportunity to review the drawings for the New River Weir, and just going through the drawings. The drawings had a few issues with them, but part of the specification, I believe, in the future will be to standardize what types of drawings we want and how they're laid out. It will, as much as we can standardize on that, it'll be easier for troubleshooting in the field and easier for anybody to look at the drawings and understand what information is on the drawing, including bill of materials. These drawings have a bill of materials with a different way to show that information to understand what is where on the drawing. So those are the things that we would help to, the parish to standardize on.
So briefly, what is this gonna look like when this is over? So after
Okay.
we spend $100,000 on it?
So, at the Eastworthy site, we're gonna have an HMI there with a development software. So development software is how you make the changes to the HMI, the program. Historian will be at Eastworthy on another server. And we'll have another engineering workstation PC that would have all of your programming software. So all the software that's required to program the Allen Bradley PLCs and the Rain Gauge PLCs, and whatever's going to end up being installed at Sorrento and the different pumping stations. So I would envision the engineer working on that, or whoever troubleshooting, can either be at that PC troubleshooting or jump in on a local network at the sites. But they can also even remote into that PC. So that's where so that's what you would have the Eastworthy. Then starting at Sorrento, you'd have a runtime HMI. It'd have the same. We would have one HMI application duplicated at each site. So at Sorrento, Marvin
So
Bro.
we wanted to kind of stay at the 30,000 foot level.
Oh, okay.
Well,
You might have got down in the 30.
you're doing a great job. Go right ahead.
I just heard about this meeting about half an hour ago.
Bill gives you a lot of notice,
Right.
so you're performing under pressure.
So if I pull back up, does that mean I'm done, or?
Well, I think that, they want to hear what we got, 7 pumps that, and, what, if I sat down at a screen, what am I going to see? I'm going to see all these 7 pumps, I'm going to see the rain gauges.
Right, so I've already successfully, into the application that I'm working on now, was able to bring in the USGS data into the application, display it on a map. Still evaluating that to make sure there's, no bugs or whatnot in there, but, and also have rain gauge information on either that map or a different map. We could switch between maps. And on the map, we'll have basic information on each pumping station on that map, and then you'll be able to click on each pumping station to bring in details of those pumping stations. The one thing I didn't mention is the 5 older generators at Marvin Bro would be one of the last things that we would get into. Is the instrumentation will probably need to be, or there's no instrumentation installed right now that would interface with an HMI, a PLC. So that would need to be specified, installed. So this would just be all the planning of that.
So I think to summarize, we're going to be very, very close at the end of this phase 2 of where you guys wanted us to be in the beginning. So we're going to be there where we can automatically, the pumps can start and stop based on rainfall. We can start and stop the pumps and look at them from the offices over here, from DPW's
Right,
office,
DPW.
and the local stations. So, I think it's going to be more like what you guys were looking for at the end of this round.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your impromptu education
You're
of this
welcome.
body.
Thank you for the opportunity. I
Great
appreciate
job.
it.
Great job. I have a couple of people who have a question. Councilman, this is Commissioner Melanson.
No, that was 10,000 feet ago. I'm good.
Okay, good enough. Commissioner Robert.
Yeah, and this may be as much of a question for Bill. How many USGS gauges do we currently pay for?
Travis knows better. Clint knows it better than me.
20? think 22.
22. Now, whenever we went to Jefferson a long time ago, they showed us their SCADA system, and they installed their own rain gauges all over and eliminated, I think, maybe almost all of what they were using USGS for. Is that not in our plan?
No, so we have our real-time gauges that we put up and installed, but those are updated every 15 seconds. USGS's range from anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour to update. So,
Well, that's my point. I like
but
ultimately, we want to eliminate going from USGS to use our own in-house just because of the money spent anyway. It's a lot cheaper and we get better information. That's where I'm going at.
Yeah,
Is,
so-
are we going to have to keep these USGS, or can we keep putting more of our own out there?
we're going to keep putting more of our own, but we wanted to utilize USGS while we had them and mix them
No,
with ours.
absolutely,
Even though they're
absolutely.
delayed, it gives us our original 12 that we own with their 22. Now we've got a good network that we're working off of, even though some of them are delayed. But it's just important to point out that, so phase one was to go in and assess all the different equipment, all the different electronics, from the fuel stations to the pump stations. You had Henderson on one thing, you had Sorrento on another. And so that's what Travis's original thing is now, that we have that full assessment of phase one. Now it's phase two of getting all that combined into an easy interface. So we can visually see every pump station, every pump, vibration tolerances, fuel gauges, everything on one system, where now you have to log into 3 or 4 different systems to look at one thing. And so ultimately, to put it into 30,000, that's what it is. We're getting these stations online so everything can be in one place, and or instead of how we've installed it in hodgepodge kind of little stages with different equipment, different softwares. He's putting it all together, and he's also our owner's rep. So anything we need to go out for bid that is associated with SCADA, he helps us write the deliverables, the plans, the specs, because we don't have anybody on staff with that knowledge. So he's also serving that role as well. And so when Marvin Bro comes up, he will be assisting in writing all those so we can go out to bid. The tilt weir, currently, he's giving us those comments. Look, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I'm seeing. He's gonna test those, making sure it works into the system so that eventually we can have one system, all talking, all the same hardware, one software, and that it's all connected, and that's the ultimate goal.
And we can put an unlimited amount of gauges, rain gauges, all that stuff on this particular system. It's just ultimately the software.
I wouldn't say unlimited, but, you could buy a system that is unlimited. 300,000 tags, I think, is the number. Don't quote me on that, but that's a lot of tags.
And we have 12 right now in-house? Okay.
So, you're not gonna run out of space for the tags.
Okay.
Yeah. We're
Well, no, I appreciate it. And I mean, it all makes sense. It's definitely necessary. And that's just one more thing. And I don't even know if you deal with the aspect of locating and finding out where we would put more of these types of gauges, but I would like to have more to help. And, obviously this helps the system from working against itself also, because it's all internet network. But thank you.
sure.
Next, Commissioner Lambert.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And look, when we start talking about skeletons, and you more or less building this from the ground up, is what we're trying to put together here.
Yes. Well, yes, the HMI.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, what's the time you're looking at? The reason why, this is what I'm looking for.
Right.
I want to know the security. I don't want this parish held hostage. We get halfway through this and we looking for passwords and we looking for all kind of other ways to get a pump on. I want to make sure that we all know what's going on, because this is one of the things that I've pushed for over 20 years, and we are finally now getting to the place where we're gonna have everything on one page. But it's too many other government, you hear, they taking over different parts of it. I don't wanna hear that with this. So we building it from the ground up, and I wanna make sure everyone that needs to have access to this, I wanna make sure.
Security is an important component in the contract, so yes, he's looking to ensure that we're protected from hackers coming in and doing
Exactly.
anything, but we can also start each of these machines manually at the stations as well. It just doesn't lock us into one particular methodology. It allows us to do either or. But each person at each station will have that display, and so they can see what's going on at Sorrento, we can see what's going on at Marvin Bro, whatever, vice versa. So all these interfaces will be interchangeable, and everybody's looking at the same thing at each of those locations, including Church Point, the barn.
Sure.
Yeah, we will review the security with your IT department and make sure that it's secure. A lot of places air gap these systems, but I don't. With connectivity to USGS, that precludes air gapping. So you are going to be connected to. It is connected to the internet.
Sure.
In that way. Maybe in the future, once we get past USGS, then you can come to an air gap network on that.
Any other questions? Mr. Lawler?
Have you ever considered becoming drainage director of the best parish in the state?
Only if Bill asks me, maybe.
Well, Bill, ask him, come on.
Oh,
No questions, good
all
job.
right, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you very much. That helped me to understand.
Okay.
And if you can help me to understand all of that, you've done an outstanding job.
If you have any questions, just let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second, or I can't remember who made them.
I made one.
It was, I think Joel Robert made the motion and Mr. Melanson made the second. Are there any questions, further questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item C, update of the drainage ordinance and requirements of Ascension Parish relative to those of Gonzales and Sorrento. Mr. Compton and Mr. Sherrill. Mr. Compton left you hanging.
You left me hanging. All right, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you,
Right.
Sean, for being here tonight.
All right, just to sort of remind everyone, this is a task that we were asked by this board, asked the CSRS, sort of just comb through so many of the drainage ordinances, that's particularly over the East Bank, that's the unincorporated areas of Ascension Parish, City of Gonzales, and Sorrento, and just come back to this board and sort of just communicate just what were the findings were from, the different drainages, ordinances and codes that we may have. So tonight, this is sort of, I assume that everyone in your all's packets, you have sort of, it's a summary table that you'll see here that says CSRS on it. As many of you all are aware, the drainage ordinances and municipal codes, it's daunting how everything's tied together. It's very complicated. So I did my best here to try to break it down what I call is the big major buckets of every single drainage ordinance and try to compare apples to apples across the board. And if y'all wanted to come through ordinances, you'll see some of these things, the parentheses, to sort of let you know if you had to go back to somebody's ordinances, how do you go and tie this stuff to it? So, all right, so I don't know it's the best way to go about it. If y'all want to go line item by line item, we can start that way, or we can go straight to some questions. So I'll start until you.
Since they had this work in their packet, I'm going to ask them if they have any questions, rather than have you
Sure.
have to do that. Mr. Lawler?
Yeah, I wasn't going to go through it line by line.
Yeah.
But first of all, thank you for doing this, because I did know that there are some changes in there. Not say changes, there are differences between generally, let's say Gonzales pretty much does everything we do.
Yes.
Yeah, almost exactly. There's some differences between the town of Sorrento and Ascension Parish. It looks like some of the differences benefit the town of Sorrento from a drainage perspective. Some of the differences benefit the unincorporated portions of Ascension Parish from the drainage perspective. Really, Ron, is the president coming back?
I believe so. He just said he had to take a restroom break.
Okay, because I was going to ask, what y'all's position, if y'all saw anything in this that you thought you would recommend that we make changes, that we could talk to the town of Sorrento about making changes to either be more in line with us or us be more in line with them, to see what your thoughts were.
I mean, we've looked at it, and we had Mr. Compton sit on it as well. There's a few things that, like you said, that are a little bit different, but overall, they're pretty similar. But there were a few things with Phil that are a little bit different, yeah, so I would suggest we take a look at that. network with them.
So we have the expectation that we will take a look at that. We will
That's my
get with
next question.
Sorrento and have some discussion about whether these are things we could make more similar rather than less. Am I right?
Yep.
Okay.
Can we put a timetable on that? That we have that, maybe not by the next meeting or the next one, but maybe the third meeting from now, so we are in what, July, so August, or October? The administration could come back to us with recommendations based on this, how we can either work with Sorrento that they would change possibly their ordinances, or we would change ours to get more in line and make sure we're doing the best for
Correct me if
drainage.
I'm wrong, but I believe they did make a few edits since this had kicked off.
Yes, say there's some recent edits from the town of Sorrento, I'd say in the past couple of months, and
Yeah.
their effort was to match their original intent. As my understanding, their intent is always to be matching Ascension Parish. At least that's the minimum. It may be considered what's more unique in their area. And then through that review, there's little stuff, periods, indentions, what the intent was, got some things realigned, and what this reflects, the latest revisions by the town of Sorrento.
We certainly appreciate the town being willing to look with us at what has developed over many years and ensure that we're as close as we can possibly be. We really applaud them for having done that. Any other questions?
One of the ones I was looking at was base flood elevation. They're at 1 foot, we're at 2. Does that hurt them, like insurance-wise, having a lower requirement? The town of Sorrento? For minimum finished floor elevations? I seem to remember that discussion a long time ago after 2016, that the higher your base flood elevation was, the better insurance rate you'd get from the NFIP.
Yeah, and I would add to that question, does Sorrento having a lower one affect Ascension Parish's insurance ratings?
I'm not prepared to talk about,
Mr. President?
different rates between.
So what's the question again?
We have a difference in floor elevation, base flood, floor
Requirements.
elevation from Sorrento to Ascension Parish. Mr. Lawler's question was, did that affect the town of Sorrento's insurance rates? My question is, does that lower level in Sorrento affect Ascension Parish's rating?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but the city of Gonzales as well is +1, not +2. So town of Sorrento is not the only one. It's what they passed for their residents. I know when the firms got redone in Sorrento, they went a foot higher. So actually, it got adjusted by 2 feet. So their lower is I guess, somewhat, beneficial. I think theirs got lowered. And so that extra foot gave them 2 foot on the adjustment of the firm, because I was telling them how odd that was. But nonetheless, that's also the city of Gonzales requirement. I don't know of any negative impact, but I will ask Marcy
Thank you.
and to see if that's the case. I don't know of one. It's never been mentioned to me.
Okay. If you could just get back with us
Sure.
on that, sir, we appreciate it.
Will do.
I had one other question I just thought was
Go ahead,
interesting.
Mr. Lawler.
That, and I don't know whether it's good or bad, I noticed off-site fill mitigation options that, Ascension Parish in unincorporated, we have requirements that minor and major subdivisions, large developments, townhomes, that they're not allowed to mitigate off-site. Sorrento allows them to mitigate off-site. Is there a benefit to one or the other, which is an educational thing for me?
That's a tough one. I would say this is one of those rules to where if you just say all minor, major subdivisions, I can't think of major subdivisions any recently in the town of Sorrento.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's differences, but how is that rule actually going to apply? I don't think it's, in the reality, it's going to impact anything any differently.
Okay. I'm just curious mainly.
All righty. Any other questions, gentlemen? Sean, anything you think you really need to share with us?
Oh, no. No, like I said, I did my best to summarize on this table, in case if you got any questions on here, but all in all, you look at it, the ordinances are, across the board, they're extremely consistent. One may have a little uptick that implies it's more stringent, but just like the example I just gave there, for the one, but how many large subdivisions do you see in the town of Sorrento? You lean towards the other one. One says +2, but town of Sorrento considers recommendation. They don't allow fill mitigation on others, but they require to mitigate up to 500 a year. When you start watching between the give and takes, essentially the good thing is across the board, I would say they're all consistent. And when I say consistent, they're up to par or greater than many of the drainage ordinances you'll see across Louisiana. And I look at many places, Calcasieu Parish, Lafayette, St. Tammany, Terrebonne Parish. These are above average when you say in being protecting the residents, being stringent, and being on the cutting edge when it comes to the codes across the board.
Thank you. A lot of work has gone into all of that over the years, no
Yes.
doubt. And we appreciate your guidance almost every step of the way on that. Certainly, not at the risk of being redundant, appreciate the two cities in our, on the East Bank being as close as possible to us, and where they are not equal, they offset
Yes.
each other. Thank you. Any other questions, gentlemen? Thank you for your report, Sean.
All right, thank you.
Item D, approval of change order number 1 for Shadows of Manchac Phase 1 subsurface drainage, and I understand Mr. Monsu has a presentation to make on this item.
I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion on the $11,000 reduction.
Credit.
Save some money.
All right, so we already have a motion by Mr. Melanson and a second by Mr. Lawler, and Mr. Monso, go right ahead.
Okay. Okay, recap, Shadows of Manchac Phase 1. Essentially, we were increasing hydraulic capacity in the front of the subdivision due to flooding issues. That's basically what this project was. I don't know if y'all remember discussing the Phase 1 and Phase 2. Phase 2 was the retention pond, and we were going to see if this was going to resolve all the issues, and I think it will. Here's just some, progress pics, inlets, catch basins, concrete pipe. Again, more pipe. The pipes range, the existing pipe that was out there, from the street to the outfall pipe ranged from 15, 18-inch, and 24-inch, I believe. We basically increased the size to 36-inch from the road all the way to the outfall. So it's a substantial increase. Was it And metal piping? huh? Was it metal piping? No, it was mostly plastic, and some of it was crushed, believe it or not, which was causing some of the issues, and the lack of inlets. And we have an aerial view of the whole project coming up. In the center picture is some trench drains that we put right on the edge of the property line, because there's water that comes from the neighbors and was contributing to the issue. So this is going to catch some of it, not all of it, but here's the outfall, and here's a little mini drone footage. Can y'all see this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's the outfall. Now we're going upstream.
Hold on real quick, did y'all put the birds in there? Or is that natural?
There's your first inlet from the outfall. This is looking at the sidewalk that we replaced. Continuing on. Oh, that was it. Here's the upstream end. We added more inlets along the streets. There was your trench drain. New inlets. We had to remove some of the sidewalk up to the retention pond. So all in all, the project went well, construction-wise. We had some hiccups initially with some minor utility conflicts, but once we resolved that, I mean, it went really well. It was a good contractor to work with. Here's a real quick and dirty breakdown. Engineering costs, our budgeted engineering was $127,296. Final engineering costs, $102,756. So you get another credit on that one. Construction costs, our estimated costs going into the bid process was $470,500. The low bid was $358,129. Final construction was $347 and change. So we're under budget, 11,000 on the construction.
Congratulations.
So total project savings, you're right at, 35 and a half. So, I feel it was a good project overall. I mean, I think it's gonna help the subdivision. So, we're on time, we're under budget on all aspects, both construction and engineering. So, I mean, that's a win-win for the parish.
Great
So it was a
job.
good
Great
project.
job. Who was the contractor on this? You said did well?
That was, Industrial Enterprises. Yeah, they're actually an older contracting company, but they do a lot of sub work. They don't do a lot of prime work. So they're subs to a lot of people. But yeah, they were a good contractor to
Excellent.
work with.
So we have a motion and a second. Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. And Mr. Jarrett, I thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
And that aerial work was beautiful as well. Thanks for the birds. Item F, approval, let's see, we got to go to E. Approval of a substantial completion of the Shadows of Manchac Phase 1
Motion to
subsurface
approve.
drainage. Have a motion by Mr. Lawler, a second by Mr. Lambert. Are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item F, approval of Amendment 1 to the Master Task Order Contract for Flood Control Support with Delcon LLC to increase the total contract amount by an additional $1 million for a new contract total not to exceed $2 million. Mr. Robin, tell us why you need this.
Good evening. So as we know, over the last year, Delcon is our support group for our pumping stations and our flood infrastructures. So through the incident, the maintenance, the repairs, the contract that we had and the monies that was set aside to sustain us through the hurricane seasons, we spent a considerable amount. To give y'all just a little brief update of understanding of where we spent that money. So we spent about 10 grand on safety, engine number 1 repairs, which is the gearbox, the engine, the pump, neighborhood of $675,000. The actual clutch incident with the air leak, $268,000. To put a very good air alarm back in there, $15,000, and we repaired and upgraded the air system minus dual compressors at $21,000. That's $1 million right there. So that shut my budget clean out the banks for maintenance. So it left me with just enough money out of my 23 budget here to work on number 1's pump. So we're down to right around $500,000 to operate off of. We're in July. August, September is the heat of the moment for hurricanes. So we felt like it's very important to maybe at least get this budget picked back up to where we were on a normal maintenance if we didn't have these issues. And we were where we're at now. We feel like we're at a very good baseline once number 1 is put back together. We're at a very good baseline. The maintenance is up, the safety's up. Stations are beautiful, they're operating great. And we believe with this additional money that, put us in a good position if we were to have to do any other maintenance. And remember that this doesn't just serve Marvin Bro. This serves Fish and Frog, Henderson, Sorrento. It is all of our flood infrastructure. So at the flip of a switch, any minor detail, it costs us a pretty penny to protect these citizens with these type of assets.
So I want to add at this point that Jade and Ron have been very closely in touch with me as we discuss the need for this additional funds. I'm going to encourage my fellow commissioners to support this effort, especially going into hurricane season. We need to be able to operate fully. We need to be able to breathe comfortably, that if we have a maintenance issue, we can afford to fix it. We just cannot have those kind of delays to come back and try to get budget amendments, et cetera, in a timely fashion. So I hope that all of you who have questions will be satisfied, but it's certainly my recommendation that we approve this contract. Mr. Melanson.
I was waiting on my mic. Hey, Jay, so you said we spent about 660,000 on number one?
Yes, sir.
Is that from the incident, or that's just
No, sir.
maintenance? That's just wear and tear?
No, sir, wear and tear, that station's over 30 years old. Look, we got a listening tour coming up. I'd like to invite y'all to look at some of the videos we made of that pump coming out. The bottom end, it's a bushing. You're lubing that thing underwater. It was ate up to the point where you could just see through the metal. It was time to come out. The engine, during the incident, as we checked these items and second checked them, it was noticed that the engine had a misfire. It's very hard to tell on a 2,000 horsepower, 6-cylinder engine. So, but we did notice it. We found that the exhaust valve was broken half on one of the cylinders. It sent that fragment into the turbo, damaged the fins in the turbo. The turbo alone was $100,000. So that was heads, turbo. In the midst of that, you had a vibration, so we pulled the gearbox. That's when we found the slop in the actual pump itself. So, as y'all know, y'all have proved in the past, y'all have had several gearboxes that were updated. I think there were some flex in them, some different things that would eat the gears up. So we took the opportunity to have that gearbox checked. We had it updated, had all these gussets put in it, so that when all this goes back up, hopefully we can get another 30 years out of this thing for the community. So it's very expensive on the end, but look, right there, I want to remind y'all, this could happen any day with pumps 2, 3, and 4. They're 30 years old, and we have to be prepared, because to pull that pump and get it serviced, you're looking at another $400,000. It is underwater. So,
Absolutely.
And you said, so from the clutch incident, did I hear you right about 250,000?
yes, sir, I was very pleased with this.
Right, so that's.
Man, one would have thought this was very catastrophic. It wasn't. This was no more than what I spent on maintenance on a given day with just an item to have that kind of money. But I want to remind y'all, as of today, I'm in touch with, working with James LeBlanc, Brett Hughes on getting our money back for this. We're insured for it. We've gotten all the information to them. I'm in the middle of maybe breaking down what would be mechanical or fire related. So we're there. Brett is very close. He's been working with us every day on this. So we should at least recoup this end of the deal.
Okay. And my last question, is this gonna need any kind of budget amendment or anything like that? I mean, we had $1 million
So this
built
went
in.
to finance already, and it was introduced at the last council meeting. So I'm just kind of seeking pre-approval to once it has been accepted as an ordinance, that we can move forward with it. And thought pattern on that, we're in July. I don't need anything to kind of hold us up that we would have to reach out for money in another pocket. We definitely, we don't ask, we respond.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's very important.
Thank you, man.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
Motion to move.
Have a motion by Mr. Lawler, a second by Mr. Melanson to move. Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Thank y'all.
Good job, Jade. Thank you very much. Item G, approval of amendment number 1 to master contract for professional services with Elos Environmental LLC to increase the total amount of the contract by an additional $150,000 for a new not to exceed amount of $300,000. Ron?
This is just for our permitting projects, and we have a lot of things moving with all the capital projects that are requiring assistance, and we're just preparing for more of them to come down the pipeline.
Have a motion by Commissioner Lambert, a second by Commissioner Melanson. Are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item number 7, the drainage reports. A, HNTB ADAPT Program, grant application, our monthly update. John, welcome. Thank you for being here with us.
So I'll get right to it. Last month I was here and I discussed some of the projects that we're tracking. Today I'm going to give you an update on the top 5. Number 1 being the Marvin Bro Pump Station and Levee Improvement Project. We requested additional federal funds to increase in construction costs we've been going, we've had some meetings and calls with FEMA. The latest proposal is to get some Phase 2 funds moved over to Phase 1 to cover that, and then seek additional Phase 2 funds once we know what the project's actually going to cost once design is done. So we expect to hear from FEMA back this week, no later than next week. Bayou Conway Sorrento Pump Station expansion. The amendment was approved in May for the SCADA. Infinity has completed a 100% draft set of plans. HNTB has reviewed the plans and turned in comments for Infinity to make corrections. And they're also working on a revised BCA. This is due to the additional SCADA that was requested during Phase 1. The Sorrento Storm Surge Protection, POD and BKI are working through design. Ascension Parish is having monthly progress meetings with them. The Highway 22 gapping project is still in the conceptual stage. DOTD has approved offsetting number 1 by 60 feet to the south. There were 2 options for that. This is the one that DOTD chose. And then they're also performing a survey in order to produce right-of-way drawings and permits for the bridge only. There's 2 portions to this project. One is the actual gapping on 22. The other one is the drainage aspect of it. And then New River dredging bulkhead repair schedules. That's actually done. It came out pretty good, and then moving towards closeout of construction. Some of the grant project tracking. You also saw the slide last month. The 3 projects under hazard mitigation grant program. They're in. We haven't heard back from them yet. They're still being processed. Under the brick, though, we did receive some good news there. The Burt Allen Ditch Improvement and Detention Project. We did receive an RFI. We have a deadline to reply by July 25th. It has moved on to the next round, so we did word that that one's moving along. So hopefully we can keep moving down along and get funded. The LWI Watershed Initiative Round 2 pre-apps, those were also submitted. They're in the folks with LWI for analysis. And then statewide flood control pre-apps, we turned those in on May. They're being reviewed. The full apps will be due on October 1st. So we're expecting to hear back from them next month as well on whether or not they need some additional information to move to a full app, sorry. And then some additional opportunities here. There's the Protect Grant, which is promoting resilient operations for transformative, efficient, and cost-saving transportation. It's a mouthful, but that one is geared mostly towards resiliency on transportation projects, although there are some synergies with drainage projects. We're working with Jeff on Ascension to see if there's anything we can do there. And then one that recently came to light, Continuing Authorities Programs, CAP. This was funded under the WRDA 2020 program. And what this does is it allows the course to plan, design, and implement certain types of water resources projects without additional project-specific congressional authorization in disadvantaged areas. Currently, Ascension Parish on the East Bank has one area that's been designated as a disadvantaged area, and that's all in the Sorrento area. We've identified 2 projects so far, Felipe Lateral or Hackett Canal, and we're looking at others as well. And then the grant timelines, as we noticed, these things do take time. So, some depending on when they get funded, we could be seeing some projects in construction as early as 2027, hopefully sooner than that. And that is my report.
Thank you so much, Mr. Munson. Any questions, gentlemen? All right, Commissioner Malasa.
Look, I think this is a good time to kind of mention this, and Mr. Monzon, you might be able to provide a little insight. But in the last few weeks, a lot of discussion around LWI and funding and whatnot. So I had like a little red flag raised whenever I was reading an article last week, and it said Ascension Parish had received the second most LWI money in the state of Louisiana at $82 million, and number just kind of popped up out of my head because I couldn't remember receiving $82 million. I remember the $42 million for the Highway Gapping Project. Well, I was forwarded the information on parish, each parish, what we received and what the projects were. So the Marvinboro levee upgrade. Now, I don't have like a photographic memory, but I do have a pretty good memory. Now, whenever we received that, I don't know, roughly 18, 24 months ago, I really remember that being a 75-25 grant match.
So what happened was, we had received that from a different FEMA funding source. So we still had to owe a match on that. So there is a match assistance program in LWI. So in 2021, we voted to shift that over so that our match would be paid 100% through LWI money. So they moved the whole grant that we had gotten from another FEMA source into LWI, and that's why it says we have 37 million for that project, because they moved the whole grant so that our match could be matched. The reason we owe 19 million is because we are that much difference between what the grant pays and what the Conway Sorrento Pump Station upgrades and the Marvin Bro upgrades cost in total, because both of those projects are in that grant. So that's why it shows up as LWI. I had to do the research and same questions you had. So I had to go back in time because the numbers wasn't working out. I couldn't figure it out. And so finally, we got Hermina to nail it down and track it through a timeline to discover that they moved the whole grant. Now, what we should have done is when they moved the grant to LWI, we should have went back to the first funding source and asked for another 37 million with a 2575, but we did not. And that's just oversight. So the
So by
whole
FEMA
thing got moved
moving,
over.
so by FEMA moving the money, I mean, there's no way to shortchange it, that we lost the $37 million.
No, we got.
We had a grant that was not LWI money,
But it had a 2575
match.
match.
Yeah.
This is paid 100%. The reason we owe is because our cost of our projects is above that amount. And so our match is what is above and beyond, but the match and the grant are being funded 100% because it did move over. And that was the difficult part to understand. I couldn't get the math to work, but it tracked. I'm gonna have to send you all the documentation
I'm
so
trying-
you can track the
I
timeline.
mean, whenever we
of when the events
passed this, it was a $57 million project.
Correct.
Now we got 39.
No, it is a 57, but we didn't get 57 million in grant money.
37.
We got
only got
37 million in
37,
grant
yeah.
money. What a 2575 match of that. Well, in order to get the match paid for, it needed to move under LWI, which is 100% funded with no match. So they moved the whole grant over in LWI. But yes, let me get Hermina and all the documentation and the timeline, and I'll send that to the whole board so that you can see that transaction. Because it's very difficult. I couldn't get it. I kept going circles. I said, I don't understand. There's missing money. They should be paying, if they're paying 100%, well, then why are we owing anything? I need to send you the whole documentation of all the different events that happen, and you'll see it. The math will work out, and I'll get, to put it in a spreadsheet, I'll get Patrick to put it in a spreadsheet so you see what we owe and what is funded and where it was before, and then when they moved it, the dates they moved it, and what got paid additional, which is the 25%.
Which originally, or 25%, if I remember right, was roughly 15, 16 million. So are you saying that LWI is picking that up as well? And we no longer have to put up the 25%? Is that what I'm understanding?
I can explain that.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
the 25% was for phase one. Okay, so, the parish is only on the hook for about $2.5 million for phase one. And then, the federal government was gonna pay the other 75%. Now, the total $57 million, once you got phase one designed, what was left of it was for construction. But because of the global match issues, when the entire grant got moved, you were capped at that $57 million. So once you went to construction, it wasn't a 75-25. It was like, the parish was on the hook for like $19 million total. And then whatever was left was gonna be picked up by the grant. But you gotta realize when we put that together, that was using 2017 estimates, and things have escalated since that time. And so, it was a $57 million project, but we're estimating now that's probably gonna be more like $77 million or $76 million. But my proposal is, let's get the design done. A lot of that money is gonna be attributed to mitigation, which we don't really know if exactly what we're gonna have to mitigate until we have a complete set of plans in front of us. Construction costs could fluctuate, they could go down, they could, stabilize. I think we just need to get through phase one and then go on to phase two.
So when he mentioned in his report, we're waiting for GOSEP, we're waiting to hear from them if we have an additional adjustment for that increased cost. So we're waiting to hear back from them if they will come up with some more money for the cost of inflation from 2017 to 2023. And we have already made that request, we're just waiting to hear. And so that's what he means, we should hopefully hear something in the next week, which I understand, I take a week to be 2 weeks when we talk about grants, so.
That's a big step up for a project that's mostly fill, right? I mean,
You're right, elevating a lot of those levees. I mean, it's a considerable amount of material, dirt and hauling. So that's where most of the escalation. But what moves the needle is,
Yeah.
the
Now-
cost of
Yeah,
hauling.
there's structure
place that
too
dirt.
now. So we got the Marvin Borough upgrade surge protection around the station. So we got to extend them walls out, we got to raise up around the station, because that's where you saw most of them. Even though we had breaks in the levee, or topping of the levee, most of the water was going around the station. We were pumping a lot of the same water. So in addition to the levees, as we're coming in with those levees into the station, you'll have surge protection at the station itself. And that's the reason for the gates being lowered, so that it doesn't flow through the station when a pump's not on, as well as outside the station on both sides to tie in and have those surge protections there as well. So it is some structural in that grant as well, including the Conway pump station additions, which is all structural. So, remember, both those grants are 57, the station upgrade and the levees, not just one. So it's a lot of moving parts, but yes. Let me see if I can get all that together, certainly the timeline, certainly the event, certainly the money, and then tell you all what's under it, because it's extremely complicated once you start digging into the FEMA documentation and the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages associated with it.
so are we still gonna have to put up money?
Yes, 19 million. Now, we are asking FEMA to come up with more money to do that cost assessment, so hopefully that'll change, but as of today, the number's 19, and that's the point of multi-year budgeting.
Yeah, what's one of the responses that we're asking for FEMA is, GOSEP, when they respond to us, we want to see it in writing of what they're actually going to commit to help out with.
Or with the multi-year budget and what we're already planning on, like, if I remember right, it was around $15 million on this project originally. Like, when we originally got it, it was 44 million on a $57 million project. We were gonna have to put the rest of that up.
Yeah, and that's where I need to get you the numbers, because I don't want to get up here and quote without the documentation in front of me. Let me get you all of those when it was originally granted, because it gets difficult, I'm telling you. I had the same issue you had. I could not make it work in my head. Let me get you that
I
documentation.
went back and watched the drainage meeting the other night. We talked about
I know.
the Ascension Consolidated Gravity Drainage District was going to have to put up 15-16 million, which we were happy to do, but we had like 6 or 7 years.
19.
Right? Huh? Or 19.
Yep.
Are you,
No, I'm more confused than whenever I started. So.
Trust me,
well, and so are the rest of us
Yeah.
now.
it's tough.
But we look forward to your, the product that you'll get to us, Mr. President.
We'll do.
Mr. Lawler?
Just so we're gonna get that next meeting, because this is really confusing.
Yeah, I'm gonna have Armenia, she was putting it together for me and Patrick, so we could understand it. So I'm gonna just take that information, get it to Patrick, get him to put it in a spreadsheet, as well as the back documentation for that spreadsheet, so y'all can see the simple version. And then if y'all wanna dig into the grants and all the paperwork, you have that access to as well. We may have to put that in a Dropbox, but we'll determine the email size at that point in time.
Thank you, sir.
Do we run the risk of not being able to, are we gonna have to look at other projects now that we may have to cut because of this?
No, we got extensions from FEMA to keep moving forward. So I think it's a great project. There are.
I don't want to, like, stop this project, I'm saying, but are we gonna have to put extra money into this project that we didn't expect?
Not for phase one. You
Not for
got
phase-
phase one covered, yeah. We can move forward with phase one, yeah.
But later on, are we gonna have to put more money into it?
Well, once we get phase one design and we know, we have a better estimate to what it's actually gonna cost to construct and mitigate, then we can go ahead and request additional funds from FEMA or try to cover the shortages with other grant opportunities. Or
Yes.
maybe we capital outlay.
In
funds.
addition,
Good.
we put 5 million away for capital expenditures and
Yeah.
adapt a year. So in 4 years, we would have that paid. So in 6, we tend to spread that out a little bit more. And, you know, any additional money here or there that we can save, or a good tax increase or an expansion from a plant where we get 20%, you know, you choose to split that up between roads and drainage and get some of these things paid for. But we'll have to battle those decisions when we get to them. But with all the expansions we have coming, the money's coming. They hadn't started yet. But when you talk about billions upon billions of dollars, and we're gonna get some of that money, 20% up front, it's a ton of money. It just hasn't started yet. And so the money's coming. It's just, it's gonna take time. It takes time.
So it's also a 24-month construction period, so it's a good possibility that you could spread that over 3 fiscal years, depending on when you start.
All right, thank you, Mr. Monson. Mr. Lambert, go right ahead.
Look, not to scare anyone, but what the parish president just mentioned, the storm surge. Back when Katrina hit, we all knew if it would've took a shift a little bit closer, this is protecting the jewels of this parish if we get this in place. And the cost of it is only gonna continue to rise if things just keep pushing down. I mean, pushing away. So it's a little more to it than a lot of folks are thinking, but this is gonna protect a lot of jewels in this parish once this thing is complete.
Understood.
Thank you for that, Mr. Lambert. Thank you, Mr. Monson. Any other questions? Comments? Hearing none, thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate your report. Now, item B, the Drainage Monthly Report. You're back.
I'm back.
Hi, Jade.
All right, before we start, I want to take the opportunity to give a shout out to our crews out there working in the fields. It's been really hot. You'll see in this report, we've really made some good headway, and we've got a good head of steam rolling. We're tying in some jobs, doing things that hasn't been done before. And if any of y'all have really ridden these major canals, I know we've been in somewhat of a drought, but you'll really see where water on the upper end is not there anymore, where it would hold in the past. But these guys are sticking it out, and I tell you, I'm very, very proud of them. I know Ron is. We sit in the office and just look at these statistics daily, but they deserve to hear this and be recognized. So shout out to them for the hard work and efforts that they make, and that's our success. But so work order status, and going back to their success, when we started this, guys, we were at a 47% ratio. Time flies by pretty quickly, but not a lot has really passed. We're at 60%, and I'm very proud of the staff for that. We jumped 10% just within the last 4 months. So it's a huge success for us. Work orders by department. Minor East, 876, 191. Now that project is just kind of a different code within this system, so it kind of really ties into the Minor East. Culvert maintenance, 121, waterways, 65, major, 41 projects. Bear in mind, 41's a low number, but remember the word major. Some of these projects are months long. 41's that is a lot of digging. Total work orders by activity so far. Roadside ditches, 192, and it goes on. But I want to kind of focus on something on this report a little bit. We don't notice some of the little things that happen, some things that benefit us in the smaller rains. Pump truck blowouts right now, we're 132. These are projects. These are not individual culverts. So these guys might go out with a work order, and they might service 7 or 8 culverts per that work order. and you go into raking those culverts. So what I'm getting at is you look at an individual number, you really combine 2 or 3 of these activities as one group. And it's a huge process to keep this, and you'll see it a little further in the report, how it kind of ties in. Work orders completed, our trends are looking really good. You can see our work order level of new work orders is decreasing slightly, which tells me that our maintenance program is starting to work. And we hope to trend it lower and really get on top of maintenance and not have the request and aggravation to the community to have to do that. But we are there if they need us, so we want them reaching out. We've completed 116 in the month of June. Like I said, very hot month. That's a lot of work orders complete in that type of temperature. Minor drainage projects, that's where I'm really proud. 91 completed projects in June. That is a ton of small projects. Digging roadside ditches, off-road sinkholes. There again, pump trucks blowing out. Really had these crews moving. This is where I kind of wanted to highlight this crew this month, this culvert crew. A lot of guys don't see them. We don't only dig ditches, but we have some of these areas. This is some off a clean road. You can see the ditches don't really need to be dug. This is where I was talking about tying in work, something I'm really focusing on with joining our major and minor crews and getting them to kind of think similar together. We just dug some major drainage right in that area. So we wanted to go in and hit these neighborhoods and improve their drainage through their culverts, get them blown out, and actually utilize that major ditch that we dug. So very, very proud of them to move forward this. A little bit on Sandstone Drive here, same deal. We're going in, we're not looking at one culvert, we're doing the whole loop. So, but those guys are doing an exceptional job. Like I said, sometimes they go unseen. This is something huge. We're working on a litter, also the recycled material. This is something we do every Monday. The same crew blocks out Monday and then every other Tuesday, and they go out and they unrestrict culverts. This is the type of debris that you're seeing when they go out and unrestrict these culverts. One of the things we do also is when we call for rain, we get that 70, 80, 90%, and these guys can't go in the field. They get in these trucks and they go start running blockages, removing this debris, everything from sofas to beds to recliners, broken down garbage cans. I mean, you can see it's huge, and this is every week in the month of June here, as you can see throughout, all the way to 18-wheeler tires. So makes a huge difference at the end of the day, and it's sometimes small to those guys, but it is a huge cost to the parish to keep this, but it keeps these drains open. So major drainage projects completed in the month of June: Plug Bro Ditch east of I-10, Smith Bayou, Reese Lane, Highway 929 box culvert upgrades completed. Shredding at Smith Bayou from Robert Wilson to Ashland has been completed, and upper section of Lower Goudine has been completed. In progress, major drainage, easily Molson I-10 crossing behind Woodgate Townhomes. Digging on that, shredding Panama Canal. That shredder has just been put in place over the last couple of days, so that project is getting started underway. The ditch off of the Lower Goudine, and repaired the crossing at Duplessis Primary School. So this just kind of go back to my maps, give y'all that little visual. This little area, I-10 behind Woodgate, these guys at Woodgate were suffering a lot of water. We were able to go in and get in between, worked with Aaron Ellisar with the state, big fan of that guy. He helps us out a lot. We were able to get in there and clean out in between that interstate, and we're going to the other side towards the bluff to allow that water to drain where it needs to go. Also, just north of that on I-10 at Miller Road, we were able to dig that crossing. Same effects there at Miller Road, get that water off those guys. And just an idea map location of that shredding that was done at Smith Bayou. In progress. This is a location here where we're on the Panama doing our shredding. Like I said, we're about 2 days into that, more or less getting set up to start. And this is our bigger picture of where major drainage has been. Y'all have been seeing this little update for 3 or 4 months. Really big focus right now is getting up into that industrial area. A lot of movement's going to be made there because it's a lot of material. Those culverts are probably 50% or better blocked. And so that's where we're heading in that area. And I'm going to turn this over. We got a few little capital projects. Mr. Ron will follow up.
Thank you, Board. Just kind of figured we incorporate a little bit more of the other projects that the Drainage District has voted on and are moving. So you guys have voted on some concrete lining projects, a bundled package with Hartman Engineering designing them and bidding them. So currently they're on the Francois Lateral in Gonzales. They're just getting started there. They have a little bit of culvert work where that dirt's disturbed. And you can see in the lower part of the photo the existing concrete liner. This area makes a very hard turn right there, and it's really eroding out that curve. So they're getting started on that section, and once they wrap that up, they're scheduled to move to the courthouse lateral next, and then they will be moving to the Sods Bayou in Villa Galvez subdivision. Then we move on to the Tilting Weir. This is their construction schedule. If you look down towards the June and July timeline towards the second column to the right, you'll see that the driving into the piles, and they're starting to construct the foundation of the project. And you can see the timeline is projected to get into 2024. However, the weather's been cooperating, and we feel like once they get this foundation in place, we're going to start seeing a lot of movement on the project. So as you see in this photo, you see the crane and the foundation pile driving equipment on site. That was brought out about a month back, and then delivery started coming in with the piles. So in this photo, you can see them prepping the site here for the Tilting Weir. They've excavated that out, dewatered it, and you're seeing the heads of the concrete piles that they are driving. This was 3/4 of the piles driven, and as of yesterday, they had 3 of these left to do. And this is those guys set up, rigged out, and driving that last set of 3 piles for the foundation in yesterday. And so they're really getting after it out there, battling this heat and fighting the elements. But the next step is once these piles are driven, there's going to be some sheet piles coming in, and they're going to parallel the concrete piles with the sheet piles, and then they'll start the actual concrete forming in the middle of all that and pour the base for the weir to be constructed. So that project is moving along really well, and the contractor's doing a good job. And as you can see in the very bottom of those photos, those 3 piles have been completed. Then we move on to New River dredging. As mentioned in H&TB, kind of mentioned it a little bit. This was the final thing on that dredging project was a bulkhead failure on Main Street. We entered into a cooperative endeavor with the city of Gonzales, and they've agreed to pay half of these repairs, and then the project was repaired. It has now been completed, and so we've gotten with H. Davis Cole, who is doing the resident inspection on the New River dredging. Tentative next week, we'll do a complete project walkthrough and start preparations for coming to you guys in August, hopefully, for a project closeout on New River dredging. So that'll be another project nearing completion there. This is a Muddy Creek Drainage Improvements Grant project that started several years ago. It's been lingering with the FEMA process of closing it out. If you look to the right side of that photo, it's where LADOTD improved Highway 42 and replaced that bridge with 3 box culvert. In conjunction with this project, we improved Muddy Creek downstream of that, all the way from Highway 42 to Manchac Acres Highway. So you can see the channel improvements were done, and the slopes of the channel were armored all the way through the job. And so we have a few photos that really came out really nicely. It kind of helps out with the mission of the vegetation group. They don't have to mow this, they can just spray it with herbicides to keep it up in that stretch now. So on this, FEMA, at the end of the grant, required us to do a letter of map revision for the project to incorporate the newly improved channel sections. CSRS Engineering prepared that application and had gone through that process for the parish of submitting that to FEMA. FEMA has accepted our submittal, and they approved the project to go out for public advertisement of that letter of map revision. That process is now complete. The public advertisement went through, and there were no comments made. Therefore, our project is well on the way to being closed out after several years of being on the book. So we're very proud of that. Thought it would just be a good idea to take the time to touch on a few other projects that are moving that will be coming to you guys for approval in upcoming meetings.
Ron, when you say several years, how many years is several years?
I think that that project has been talked about and in the works since 2010, 11-ish, I believe it was. And then it finally got awarded, and I think construction's commenced somewhere around 2016, 2017. And it was all the way through 2019. 2020 is around the timeline when this all was, that those photos were completed. So the closeout process of that is even taken a couple of years to get to this point. So we're really glad to, and we appreciate Ms. Hermina and her group for the support on walking us through closing out this process.
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Lambert?
And Ron, with the rock lining of the courthouse here, how long do you think that's gonna take?
I don't want to speak for the contractor, but I don't suspect that it'll be much more than a few weeks to a month.
Yeah.
It should be a pretty rapid process.
Hoping we got Billy Galvez before that, but I need to.
That may still, there is a utility relocation at that courthouse site
Right,
that has to take place, so, that's tentative where they were headed.
sure,
But pending on how that works out, they may be going to Villa Galvez next. We'll see how that shakes out.
appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Ron.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, dude.
Item C, the Vegetation Monthly Report. It's hot, we know.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good evening.
Okay, I'll go ahead and get started in my report for last month. To give you all a quick update, this is just for our state highways that we have a contract with DOT. We are 100% complete on everything. The total cost that we spent for that contract as of the close of June was $189,000. The second cycle is currently underway. We're getting ready to begin Highway 42. Already we've done a 62% of an application for herbicide, and 6% has been done for litter. Another contract labor update. We were at right under 1.2. This is the total of the contract. So far, up to date, $32,000 has been spent on major, $152,000 on minor, vegetation right up under $700. So total paid to date, what we've spent is $878,000, and we have $220,000 left on that contract. Some work order metrics. This is our call center stuff. Definitely want to make sure, call the note. This time last year, we were at 207. Last month was 85. So we are only at 41% of the complaints that we were at last year. As you can see, the blue line has definitely been caping trend underneath. This month was the first wow factor for me. I want to give credit to, my guys are building really good teams out there in the field. Also supplementing Lifehouse for hand cleaning and trash picking up. Our established maintenance cycles we've been holding to, even doing proactive maintenance of our servitudes and making sure we're on par and have our effective herbicide application.
If I can ask a question right
Sure.
now, Johan. Lifehouse has been able to continue to provide the number of folks that we need. I know we had challenges around that a few years ago, not with them, but with others. So where are we on that?
So as we're reaching into, I'm not sure if we're in year 2 or 3, but somewhere in there. We need to start assessing how we manage those crews throughout the year. So we're probably going to start reducing that staff in November, certainly in December, January, February, and then start ramping back up in March all the way to probably into September to somewhere in October. We need to try to get this and keep this around $1 million. So we need to start moving some people around. That's just something we're going to need to kind of flex with a little bit. We just got to start controlling the costs across the board, and that's just in everything. The more we're able to do that, the more big dollars we're able to put to capital projects. So we're just going to have to manage that, and they know that, staff knows that, and
Yeah,
we're going to start looking at those winter months of reduction of Lifehouse so that we can go ahead and start ramping up when we need them, but start decreasing them when we don't have that much, grass to cut, cleaning and things like that. So we're just going to manage that in order to attempt to hold that $1 million number.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Some breakdowns of our work order metrics of what came in, the 85. You can see a quick breakdown of what came in. We completed 50 this month. Overall, this is as long as we've been in this Munis system, we're at 79% complete. That's over 2,000 work orders we've completed. Have 309 still waiting to begin process. So numbers are definitely trending good consistently. Some of our own internal numbers, we completed 152 last month. This is all of our preventative work that we see that we go and do before we get a complaint. What's set up for our maintenance cycles in our mowing districts and also related to our state highway contract. Some overtime numbers. What we've done related to cutting and spraying, May, we had worked 150 hours. June was 800. This time last year in June, we were about 11% over production. This June, it was around 14%. Anyone have any questions?
I don't see any. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
We're making sure our men are being well hydrated. Safety is a factor, certainly during this time of the year. I appreciate all those noddings of the head, yes, because that is important. We don't want to lose anybody on the job. Heat stroke can be fatal. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, Mr. LeBlanc's on top of that, obviously, as y'all know, as he is on top of most things. We send out regular emails. They do testing, and they or talk to every week about hydration. And listen, we've had that many employees. You have medical conditions. It's something we got to keep a constant eye on. The supervisors are aware of it. So if they ever get somebody who gets dizzy or anything else, we start to call. We set into the protocol to, all right, we call safety, come take a look. Does this person, need any assistance, medical assistance, or whatever be the case? So we've been on top of it. It's just, when you get into heat indexes well over 105, it gets brutal out there. And they'll ask me, why are you working this so hard? I said, well, we're here to provide a service. So I appreciate the hard work, but the work got to get done. And so, but we do very, very, very close attention to their health and their hydration and things like that. But yeah, big shout out to them for getting out in that heat and doing what we need them to do for our residents.
Thank you so much. All right. Is there any update on the Marvin Bro pump station incident this week?
Well, as far as that pump, right? Where we are with the last pump.
Yeah, we had talked to Mr. Dawson about this, Ms. Terry, and the next phase of it is the Triton, the SCADA, getting modernized, right? And as Jay mentioned in his amendment to the contract, we feel like we have that uphill battle kind of behind us, and we're back at baseline.
Okay.
But the more the updates will be coming will be in regard to SCADA and moving that project to getting those more modernized. So that's kind of where we are at the moment on that.
So I'm satisfied. I mean, we're in the month of July. We started this process in January. I mean, you all responded immediately and began giving monthly updates. So I'm satisfied as your chairman that we have had sufficient updates on this. If there are members of the commission that think we need to continue to evaluate beyond SCADA, if we need to be looking back more at the safety, the equipment, the perhaps we need to keep the standard operating procedure piece on, because I think the other things have been done. The safety update, the equipment safety has been done. So let's keep just the standard operating procedure. Let us know where we are on getting that done and move on to SCADA updates under this topic.
Yep. So, I mean, getting back up to 7 pumps is what is critical, because any of those pumps can go out at any time. So we haven't had any hurricanes or tropical storms yet, but we gotta be prepared for that. So it's important we have all 7 up and all of our pumps at all stations up and running.
How
And
far
so-
away are we from 7 pumps, Mr. President?
I reached out today because a month ago, our last ETA was 3rd, 4th week of July. And I should hear back within the next day or two to verify if we're still on that course. But the last update was the end of July.
Okay. Let's make sure we update this body
Yes, ma'am.
next month on that.
Will do.
And tell Bill these are kind of off the hook for the rest of those items. I'm sure he'll be grateful.
I don't think I want to let him off the hook.
No?
No. I like having Bill around.
Yeah, he's a great guy to have on the hook. Thank you all so much.
Motion adjourned.
The chair has entertained a motion to adjourn, and there are no objections. We are